everybody, welcome back to Let's Race with Cone. This week we are going back in time due to a little bit of inspiration from automation. I ended up getting into some track making to replicate a course that they are making for the game in 2D form, and I kind of wanted to bring it to life in 3D form in this game, NASCAR Racing 2003 season, which is quite old, definitely not cutting edge like next car game or anything like that, but it is still very popular and still very well known as being one of the best racing sims ever made, according to a lot of people, the best racing sim. In my opinion, iRacing has kind of trumped it in the realism factor, but this is still a better game. iRacing is a very professional setting. It's a lot of work to do anything in iRacing, and this you can still kind of pick up and play. Me personally, I haven't done so in a couple years. I used to do 2 or 3 nights of league racing and just an astronomical amount of track making for this game, and that's what I kind of want to go over today. There was a little bit of interest. I showed the track making process in a little video for automation, and I kind of want to just go over some of my favorite tracks that I made for the game in kind of just a short format. Maybe we'll do some quick races on them and whatnot. We're going to start out with some of my favorite road courses, because those are primarily the favorites for me. I always had the most fun creating those. Obviously, sports car racing, road racing's pretty near and dear to my heart. Now, there is mods for this as far as cars go. They are somewhat limited. You couldn't adjust the physics. The game makers got very upset because they didn't want the core game, like physics and whatnot, to be modded, because they were using that engine for iRacing, and they didn't want people to basically make their own competitor for iRacing based off of this. So we're kind of limited to 4 basic chassis. But one that did come out and was created by the original makers under the name of Project Wildfire, they made a Trans Am mod, and that's probably my favorite mod and where I have spent most of my time. So that's what we're going to start in. Let's go over this. I'll put damage on realistic. We will not do a full pace lap because we want to go through this as quickly as possible. I will even turn yellow flags off. Leave weather like it is. I'm going to kind of reduce the field down so I can skip qualifying. We'll do maybe a 20 car field. I'll leave this on 98% because I don't quite honestly remember just what kind of AI percentage I used, and it has been a long time since I've raced in this game, so I'm going to be a little rusty. Alrighty, so the tracks. I've got a lot in here. There's so many more than what I have right here. I have to just kind of move them around as I use them. You can only fit so many. But I picked out a couple to go over today, and I've got to switch. Oh, maybe I do have them on here. I might have to switch the tracks over as we go. But I'm going to start with probably the number 1 favorite track that I ever made, and it was a track that was a layout that was given to me. Somebody sent me an email and said, hey, this would be a cool layout, and I just kind of ran with it. And it's called Hockenheim at Calgary Speed Park. This is based in Calgary, Canada, where the Olympics were held years ago, and just kind of an idea to reuse some of those unused grandstands and grounds and whatnot. The Hockenheim thing, that has to do with the league that I ran in, was the Pigs Racing Series, and all of the tracks that I made in conjunction with them that would be used in their leagues all have some kind of pig-esque name. So this one's Hockenheim. Alrighty, so it has been quite an adventure trying to get this game to record. It's actually taken me days of bug fixing and problem solving, trying to figure out how to get Fraps to record without freaking the game out. But we're going to make an attempt here. Hopefully it works. I have locked it down to 30 frames per second, so hopefully it stops freaking out. And I have had to turn some of the trackside objects off because the animated objects seem to not like the recording process, so deal without those. So with all that out of the way, let's take a tour of Calgary Motorsports Park, also known as Hockenheim. So as we exit pit road here, you'll hear my wheel going crazy because the force feedback in this game is very aggressive. Come out onto the track, and you can see it's kind of set up to be somewhat of an F1 track, maybe a retired F1 track. It's not quite to the standards that they would be at today, but it's definitely got that kind of large GP track kind of feel to it. Coming up through one of my favorite parts of this track is the S's. It's going to take me a few laps to get back into the rhythm. Real hard braking zone. He was much better at than me.
Stay on the right.
Oop, on the curb. That's good. This has always been a very difficult part of the track. Real low speeds. These cars, although they have a lot of mechanical grip, a lot more power than they need. Some pretty good banking to these turns. You know, they're not completely flat like you might find at some road courses, especially modern F1 tracks. They seem to like those super flat, fast turns. Alright, let me see if I can maybe get into a little bit better rhythm now that we're coming up on a complete lap here. And I'll just turn a few laps, and then we're going to jump into a race and see what it's like.
104.784.
Okay, so here we go. Gonna start a little bit of a pace lap here. Not a full pace lap, but not a standing start either. It's one of the options that I've always liked in this game, is you kind of get a little bit of a warm-up, a little bit of time to chill out before you start. Seems like a lot of racing games, they kind of just dump you right into the race. One thing you might notice is that I am driving from the roof cam. It's because I never really found a liking for the cockpit view in this mod. It's just, there's so much view obstructed, and when I'm recording, especially in a 720 screen, 720p, it's pretty hard to see anything. But the roof cam I really like, and it's not very disorienting. You know, you kind of follow the pitch of the car, so you still get that little bit of feel to it, rather than, say, a chase cam or whatever. That is one thing this game always had, was good views, you know, views that are actually useful and not necessarily cinematic. Another thing a lot of newer games don't get right is they try to add drama with the way you view the car, and that's not a good way to add drama. Just make a good game instead. Here we go, down to the start. Starting in the back, didn't qualify. There's only 20 cars. We'll see how high we can get up or how quickly we crash. NASCAR rules are going to apply here, so that means we cannot pass cars till the start-finish line. The AI might be a little weird at times. I did build these tracks mostly with multiplayer in mind, but I did at least try to make the AI work correctly.
Green flag, green flag. Green, green, green.
Can't pass. Yeah, we can pass. See if we can pick a few off in turn one here. Yeah, nice little log jam going there. Now we're stuck in a log jam. Oh, that was painful. Oh man, we got KO'd there. Okay, get back on track. Now, because I turned yellows off, we're gonna have a little bit of a lapping session, huh? See if I can catch up anybody. I kind of have my doubts about that. I don't know what happened there. I guess somebody must have got spun on the inside, took us out. But unlike some newer games that I play, looking at you, F1 2012, 2013, We actually have replays, so we can go back and look at what happened. It really shocks me that they can get away with making a game in this era that can't support replays. It's pretty sad. This game is literally 10 years older than that. And they had replays going back to like Nascar 2. Enough ranching, I can actually still see them up there, so maybe we can catch them. A lot of work. It's I would say it's a little bit less realistic than iRacing. Obviously, there's so much less developed as far as the tire physics go and stuff like that. But it's still, oops, mischief there. It still feels right. You know, it still feels like you're really driving a car and you really got to manhandle it around. These are some crazy high-power race cars, and I don't think there's anything even in iRacing that represents a Trans Am car perfectly. I would say, I think what would probably best represent it is the maybe the Mustang, but the Mustang's a little bit down on power compared to these. I've messed around a little bit with the new Porsches, sorry, the Roughs in iRacing. I'd say they're probably pretty comparable to this as well. Those have a little bit more grip, though. But as for the track, this was always just my favorite track to drive. For some reason, I didn't come up with layout. I think I mentioned that earlier. But I pretty much followed this layout I got that was drawn on a napkin, essentially to a T. I just added the banking, the elevation, and all of that stuff to it. And I actually put a little bit of banking into a lot of the turns, because there is some very sharp, like 90-degree turns like those two back there, that would have made this track just kind of a killjoy if it was all flat. So I don't think this could be a modern F1 facility, that's for sure. It would just be way too fast. I think it's a great layout for a GT style car like this. And even the NASCAR Cup cars handle pretty well around here. So I don't know that I've ever actually done a race in them here. I really love this S section where you're kind of on the gas the whole way through it. Building speed up till this very difficult braking zone for these two turns. Easy car. Almost starting to catch the back of the field.
One more lap to go. 1:20.1, 2, 3. You got a slow car on the left.
Alright, so I used a little bit of tire strategy to get up towards the front, up to 9th place on the last lap here. I got these two battling pretty hard, hoping to maybe catch them. Definitely one of the cooler things about this game is that you can compress the tire wear and fuel consumption by a factor of 2, 3, or 4, so that you can kind of run a full race, you know, strategy-wise, without having to run a full race for like 2 hours. In a matter of 12 laps, we had to do 2 pit stops. So it gives you the feeling of running an actual full race, not just a sprint where you don't have to do any kind of strategy in a short time span. I don't know if I'm going to be able to catch either of these guys. Well, that's a good run off of there. Get on the gas early here. Now that I've remembered my line through here, That is a really fun and dangerous turn there. Well, got one of them. Nope, 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 running wide. Get it on it. Oh, God.
Right side.
Oh, in the
Clear.
wall. Oh, well. Back to 9th we go. But that is one complete race in NASCAR 2003
All right,
in
there's
the
checkered flag.
Trans Am mod
Great
at one of my
job, buddy.
tracks. Oh, that was a mouthful. So now let's go on to another track, but maybe let's just do a couple laps at it and not do a whole race for the sake of time. Let's exit out of there. We'll go ahead and just abandon that race. We know where we finished, and it was not in the front. Let's stick to this, and I'll just go into practice mode. And we'll go to another road course. This one is called Mayville Lakeside Park. This was a fictional track I made made to be in New York. And the theme of this one is I wanted to try and incorporate some fictional like neighborhood streets into the track. So there's houses, there's ditches and stuff like that along one of the straightaways, and then a perfect spell road course connecting to that, which you will see when we head on to the track. I have not done any laps on this track in probably 3 or 4 years, so it will be as much of a learning experience for me as it is for you. Hopefully I have some kind of setup. Yep, good. And let's see what we have here. So this track comes a little bit earlier in my track making career, if you will.
Limit 45. Keep it under 3,000.
So the graphics and whatnot may be a little bit less fancy.
Okay, merge when you can.
So right onto the track we go. Again with the rather high bank turns for a road course. But not so much that it feels fictional. Even with my fictional tracks, I tried to keep them as realistic as possible. So here you can see the street I was talking about. Because that's just a fun concept, doing 160 down a street where you would normally be doing 55. Let me come off the street and back onto the purpose-built road course. This is a fun track. I really enjoy road courses that have a lot of banking like that in the turns, where you can keep your momentum and speed up. Not something you commonly find in real life road courses, but that is due to trying to reduce the speed of the cars pretty much. So a fairly short and fast track. Now we got one turn here with not a whole lot of banking to it. Washing wide. Let me go back into this section where some of these turns are decreasing radius, and some are increasing radius. I always try and throw as many of those into a track as possible, because I feel those are the best test of a driver's ability,
Still there.
which I don't typically have a whole lot of. Go. Yeah, this was a pretty fun track. I really enjoyed making because it was one that was just purely my own idea, and it was just a concept I wanted to try, and it turned out to be a pretty fun little track. This is almost like a short track style turn right there with the high banking. Go in the little S section. Ooh, run wide, run wide.
You got a slow car up on the right. 96.
Definitely starting to get a feel for the game again in the cars. Next up, we're gonna try some ovals out. Ooh, almost ran off the track there. Which I am sure I will be extremely rusty at. It would seem like it should be a whole lot easier, but I was always a much better road racer than I was an oval racer. I never had a whole lot of success with the oval stuff. So let's go ahead and cut out of here, and we'll try and find a oval track that I made to try out. Alright, so now we are loading up Chicago Twin Speedway, which is one of the last tracks I ended up making for the game, and one that took me a very long time. It's a very challenging fantasy concept where basically the track overloops itself. I just wanted to do it in a way that it's a very fantasy concept, obviously, but as I mentioned earlier, I really liked to keep my fantasy ideas grounded to reality, so I tried to do that as best as possible with this track. And you will see it features the Chicago skyline. I tried to do some buildings as well with my limited modeling skills, 3D modeling skills. And we are in the IROC Z28 mod, which was a mod created pretty much at the end of the modding era of the game for the car modding. And it's one of my favorites. I really like the car bodies of this era of IROC. So let's see if I have any setups. Don't believe that I do, so I'm going to have to try and steal one from somewhere else, just for the time being. Okay, so I don't know how this setup's going to be, but we'll give it a try.
Okay, you're clear of pit lane.
So we come out here, you can see there's a track to the left of the track to the right. It's all the same track. Really high bank turn here, kind of a speedway style turn. And we're going to go on the back stretch here, and we're going to go up a little bit. Usually a downshift into this, another high bank turn. Still kind of speedway nature. But then we close in and decrease the radius to a little bit more of a short track style turn with a little bit of variable banking there. Go down that bottom just to grab a little bit of extra speed, but you can't use it too much, you'll wear out the tires. Yeah, this gearing's way off, but you get the idea. So yeah, this was one of the last tracks I made, and one of the, I wouldn't say few, but one of the fewer ovals that I did. Another one that was just kind of purely my idea and something I just wanted to challenge myself to try and create. I think it came out pretty well.
Car inside.
Uh-oh. So here we are on another one of the
Under 55.
speedway tracks that I made. This one's a little bit more grounded to reality. It's just a normal speedway, a little bit bigger than, say, Dover. It's a little over a mile. This one features a stadium-like appearance, kind of like Bristol on a larger scale, and some pretty extreme variable banking and variable surface. So this bottom area is extremely bumpy, low grip, and has a little less banking than the top. And my setup is not got enough gear in it. So it's kind of like Darlington, where, you know, you would only really want to use this top groove, but if you if you wanted to make a pass, you could still dip down below and get onto this and try and make a move. It's not really showing as well with no setup in here, but if you were going max speed, that bottom groove would not be suitable for driving. Now these cars are also a little bit slower than the Cup cars, which you can really see the bumps there in the bottom. Yeah, the Cup cars would really be struggling to keep their speed up on the bottom groove there. Graphically and finish-wise, like detailing, this is one of the tracks I was happier with. It really looks like a finished product. Looks like something that could be a reality. I don't know if I said this one's called Pig Stadium. Another one of the tracks named after the league that I used to run in. Alright, and last but not least, probably the favorite oval that I ever made was a track called Meadowland Speedway. This track is another fantasy-based one, but I heard that there was a rumbling that they wanted to build a track just outside of New York City in New Jersey, and I kind of actually took that plot of land that they had shown, satellite image, and made a track to fit that spot. And this is what I came up with. I think I even have setups that will work built into this one. We are now in the Car of Tomorrow mod. You can see that it's the era of Cup cars that had the wings. I personally really liked the wings, but you know, it's just me.
Keep it under 55.
Don't tell a NASCAR fan that. But as we come out, this track's kind of a combination of a Michigan-style layout with an Indianapolis-style layout. And if you know what those tracks look like, you'll see what I mean as I go around here. But this is another track that graphically, I just think it came out really well. It's very finished looking and very plausible that it could be an actual track. So you can see as we come down to this end of the speedway, we got squared off turns, not a true oval. Then as you go up onto the front stretch, you got that D shape. So a lot of elements. Basically every turn of this track is different. They set up maker's nightmare. Didn't run very many races here online, which is a shame, because I think this is actually one of the best racing tracks I ever made. There's a lot of different ways you can go with setups, which makes for a lot of different ways you can have a car that can pass in different places. You know? Ugh, too much into there. Oh, kick the ball. That was 6. This car does not have such things. But yeah, it's a very easy driving track. It's not so difficult to kind of just drive around like Indianapolis can be, but it's very hard to get the most out of the car here. You're going to sacrifice the handling on one of these turns. 1 and 2 here is almost flat out on new tires. But then as you start to burn them off, that goes away. A bit of hard braking down into here. And kind of losing the nose, and then the back comes out. Into the wall we go. Alrighty, well, I hope you've enjoyed this look into the history of Cone Dodger, going back to when I was primarily just a track maker for NASCAR Racing 2003, and a little bit of a look back into NASCAR Racing 2003. This game still has a lot of interest in it. Many people ask about it and want to know where they can find it or if they can still play it. You can't really buy it anymore, but there is other ways to obtain it, if you know what I mean. And if you've never tried it, I do recommend giving it a download and trying it out for yourself. Maybe go and download some of my tracks. They are still available at racecarcentral.net. And, well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.